South Carolina. He's been here before, and that's not all of the family, but we'll see the rest of them in due course. We've got a lot of notables here among us, and one, of course, is Mike Campbell. Mike Campbell, as you remember, was the chairman of the Huckabee campaign. Did a splendid job. As you remember, Mike Huckabee came in a close second in that last race. So Mike is the representative here of the wonderful Campbell family. We're glad you're here. We appreciate your support. We look forward to seeing Iris shortly, and we're delighted to have you with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Delighted. I just want to say, I've got to say one thing before I recognize an eminent South Carolinian, and that is that I believe this man is going to be elected president. He is the one. Now, we've got a lot of fine candidates running, but I would ask everybody to look at their record, study what they've accomplished, study what they believe, and make their choice. But of all the candidates, this is one who is chief executive of a state, the state of Utah, led that state to great success. It was voted over and over as the best managed state government in the country. They had enormous economic success. So he has enjoyed great success and made progress for the people of Utah in that capacity. But also this man has served his country for many years. In addition to being a businessman in Utah, quite successfully, he has served his country in another capacity, and there's under 4 different presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan back in the early ages, it was the Stone Age back then, some of us it seems. We miss Ronald Reagan, but Jon Huntsman worked with Ronald Reagan in the White House back in the early 80s. Thereafter, he became Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce under the first George Bush, and also ambassador to Singapore. Thereafter, he became Deputy U.S. Trade Representative under President George W. Bush. The first was George H.W. Bush. And most recently, he served his country again, having been appointed by President Obama as our nation's ambassador to China. So this is a man that has been around the world. He's lived in other parts of the world. He knows the world, and it's important that we have someone with that depth and breadth of experience leading our country, in which are very potentially great times, but also potentially dangerous times. And one man who was here at the beginning of another thrilling victory was our state senator, Jon Huntsman, who was national committeeman way back for many years, leading South Carolina Republicans, and I'd like to call on Jon Huntsman. Senator?
General, thank you. Thank you. I resent what you said about the age of Ronald Reagan, because let me show y'all this picture if y'all haven't seen it. This is Ronald Reagan filing for President of the United States December the 14th, 1979 in Columbia, South Carolina. I was honored to have been involved heavily with Ronald Reagan. I was a delegate to 3 Republican national conventions, the presidential election for him twice, Henry in 1980 and 84. And one of the reasons I'm supporting this man for president, based also what Henry said, that his background, his resume is very, very impressive, is the fact he is a Reaganite. He may be the only Republican running this year who was very involved with President Reagan. He actually worked in the White House. And we were at the National Convention in 1984 together in Dallas, Texas. The governor, I want to welcome you. As I told you earlier, this is the second day of summer. We're having a cool day in South Carolina. Where do you come back in August? It's my honor to introduce Ambassador Jon Huntsman. Mary Kay, delighted to have you back in Colorado State. Governor?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. The weather today is the greatest incentive to be mercifully brief. First, I want to tell you that I come here first and foremost as a dad. I wanted you to see Mary Kay. I wanted you to meet some of our kids, some of our 7, because in the end, that's what's most important to me. And I also know that as we get out politically, now that we've been in this race for one day, that if you don't find anything to like about me, you're certain to find something to like about Mary Kay. And if you don't like anything about her, just pick a child. And we've got the numbers in our favor. But more important than that is we've visited South Carolina before. I notice that when Mary Kay touches the ground in the South, all of a sudden that Southern accent comes back. I just don't know how that happens, right? But it's miraculous. We just signed some pretty important paperwork. And I want to tell you that this state is going to be critically important to our efforts as we play out the rest of this year. Now, it was pretty easy to kind of get Asha, our youngest daughter, under control. I had to bribe her with a piece of candy. And look how quiescent and calm she is. No such luck with all of you. We're going to have to earn your support, and I understand that. And all I would ask is that you tune in to what we have done as governor. Tune into who we are as people. That's all I ask. We're running on our record. We've got, I think, a terrific record as governor that speaks to creating an environment that was truly competitive, jobs, focusing on the industries of tomorrow, balancing our budgets, creating a large rainy day fund, tax reform that was significant historically, creating that environment for growth. That's what every state in America needs. We've been there, we've been focused on that. We're very proud to be running on our record. And all I would ask is you begin to do your diligence. And this is going to take a while to play out. I know we've got some great supporters, including the senator, and I'm deeply, deeply honored to have you, John, among our supporters, along with Mike and Henry, who's one of the truly great human beings I've ever met. As we work and endeavor to get your support, all I ask is that you look at our record. Some people run away from their records. Some people run on their records, and we're running on our record because it speaks to what good governance is all about. And to me, it's going to come down to a few simple things in this country, because for the first time in our nation's history, we're about to pass down to the next generation, if you can imagine this. For the first time in history, a country that is less capable, less productive, less compassionate, less competitive than the United States we received. Now tell me that's an acceptable outcome. I say it's totally unacceptable, and I say it's totally un-American. So we then have a choice, all of you who are part of this very important early primary state. You can either stand on the sidelines and you can watch it all play out, particularly those of you who are part of the younger generation, because pretty soon this is all going to be yours. And you're going to have to live with the decisions made and the implications for your generation. So stay active, get involved, and participate in this election cycle. And we hope you find a home in our campaign. But the great thing about the United States, as I was reminded when we were speaking to a VFW convention in another great state in America, as I was looking at some of these terrific vets, John, like you, they had seen the Depression, they had fought the good fight during World War II, and they emerged victoriously for the United States. They overcame challenges, they overcame adversity, something that this country does over and over again. And I'm here to tell you that we're not stuck in a rut. We can move forward. We can draw from the finest traditions that we have in this country. And it's going to mean that we're going to have to make some painful calls as it relates to spending and balancing our budget. And part of that is going to be focusing on the percentage of our GDP that ought to be focused on government spending. It's not 23 or 24%, it's more like 19%. And it means that we're going to have a real discussion on a balanced budget amendment, something that governors have to work with. And it's the most important safeguard we have to ensure that the numbers are balanced when they're presented to the legislature at the end of the day. And it will mean, number two, that we're all able to get around a program for growth and jobs that speaks to the new industrial revolution. We've had industrial revolutions in this country, you know what I'm talking about. South Carolina has been home to some of those industrial revolutions, and then they get weak, and then some of the jobs move offshore, and then we as a country stand up and say, but we own the future, and we're the most innovative, creative, entrepreneurial society on earth. We just need the tools. We need the environment that speaks to growth. That's the second part of what this country desperately needs, is that environment that speaks to innovation and entrepreneurship. Three, we need a healthy dose of energy independence in this country. I think that'll be a job creator. It has huge national security implications. And I believe when the next generation looks at decisions made 20 years from now, if we do it right, I think they're going to say America's movement toward greater energy independence was one of the most important decisions we ever made. So we are in this with our minds focused, laser-like, on the task ahead. It's going to be about the generational opportunity to balance our books, the generational opportunity to launch a new industrial revolution, and the generational opportunity to get our position right in the world. We're coming at it looking for help and support.